So yeah, I ended up with 51% of the whole damn company. My daddy's company. The one he was standing on stage giving to my sister Simone right in front of my face, in front of God and everybody who was anybody in Atlanta. They spent my whole life calling me the slow one, the one who couldn't keep up. But in the end, I was the one who owned it all. It's funny how that works, ain't it? But look, let me take you back to how it all went down. 'Cause it wasn't simple. It started at that party, the big one, at the St. Regis in Buckhead. You know the one? The air in there was thick with money, I'm telling you. You could smell it. Smelled like expensive perfume and lobster and people who ain't never had to worry about their lights getting cut off. Man, the ceilings was high enough to fly a kite in, and they had these big old glass chandeliers that looked like frozen waterfalls, dripping light all over the place. Everybody was dressed to the nines. The men in they tailored suits, as in the women in dresses that probably cost more than my rent for a whole year. And I'm sitting there in this little off the rack black dress I got from Macy's on sale, feeling like a fraud, listening to the ice clinking in people's glasses and all this money talk just buzzing around my head like a gnat you can't swat. This whole thing was for Simone, my sister, my older sister, the golden child. She just finished her MBA at Harvard, and this wasn't just a graduation party. Nah, this was her coronation. My daddy, Derek Vaughn, he was the king of Vaughn Legacy Group, our family's real estate company. And he was getting ready to hand his crown to Princess Simone. Me, I was just Keisha. I worked there, yeah. Low level admin, paper pusher. I lived out in Decatur with two roommates and drove a 10-year-old Honda Civic with a dent in the side. I made just enough to get by working at my own family's company. You hear what I'm saying? The irony was thick enough to choke on. And the whole reason I was feeling some type of way that night, even before the mess hit the fan, was 'cause I heard him. 2 days before, my own parents, I was coming home from work. I had to stop by their house in that big old mansion in Tuxedo Park to pick up some paperwork my daddy forgot. I came in through the side door like I always do, and I heard him talking in the study. My mama, Denise, her voice was low. She said, "Derek, we have to do something about Keisha's position. It's becoming an embarrassment. Simone is about to be CEO. We can't have her sister struggling in the mailroom." That's what she called it, the mailroom. I was a departmental assistant, but to her, I was in the mailroom. My daddy, he ain't even hesitate. He just sighed, this real heavy, tired sigh, like I was the biggest burden in his whole life. He go, "I know, Denise, I know. I'll handle it after the party. We'll find a way to phase her out, give her a severance. It's for the best. She's just not built for this world." Chile, when I tell you my blood ran cold, it was like the floor just dropped out from under me. I stood there, behind the door, my hand still on the knob, and I couldn't even breathe. It wasn't the shock, not really. 'Cause deep down, I always knew they saw me like that. It was just hearing it. Hearing the words out they own mouths. Phase her out. An embarrassment. Not built for this world. All 'cause of my dyslexia. I remember when I was like 9 and the school called him in. The teacher, she was nice about it. She said, "Keisha is bright, she's creative, but the words, they get jumbled for her. It's a learning difference, not a lack of intelligence." But my daddy, he ain't hear none of that. All he heard was difference. All he heard was problem. Simone could read chapter books by the time she was 5. Me, I was still struggling with Dr. Seuss at 8. From that day on, that's all I was. The slow one, the one who needed extra time, the one who wasn't going to be nothing. They never said it to my face, not in those words. But they ain't have to. It was in every look every time they praised Simone for getting another A while I was just happy to pass. The only one who ever saw me for real, was my grandma Rose, my daddy's mama. She the one who started Vaughn Legacy Group from the ground up with nothing but grit and a dream. She was tough, man. Hard as nails, but had a heart of gold. She used to pull me on her lap and say, "Baby girl, don't you ever let them tell you what you are. Your mind just works different. It sees things they can't see. It's a gift, not a curse." Before she passed away 2 years ago, she gave me this little cedar box. It was old. The wood was smooth from being held so much. She put it in my hands, her fingers all wrinkled and cool, and she looked me dead in my eye. She said, "Keisha, you hold on to this. Don't you open it. Not yet. There's going to come a day when you feel like your back is up against the wall and you ain't got nowhere to go. That's when you open it. You'll know when." Oh, I ain't know what she meant. I just took the box and kept it in the back of my closet, under a pile of old sweaters. So back to the party. I'm standing there, my parents' words still ringing in my ears, watching my whole family celebrate my sister, and then my daddy gets up on the stage. He taps the microphone, and the whole room gets quiet. He got this big old smile on his face, the one he uses for the cameras. He starts talking about legacy, about the future. He's going on and on about Simone, his brilliant daughter, the future of the company. He said, "And so it is with immense pride that I announce, effective next month, Simone Vaughn will be taking over as the Chief Executive Officer of Vaughn Legacy Group." He paused for all the clapping and cheering. Then he said, "And to ensure she has everything she needs to succeed, Denise and I will be signing over our entire inheritance, the house, the portfolio, all of it, to her." The whole room just exploded. People was on their feet. Simone was crying these pretty little tears, hugging my mama, and my daddy, he just stood there, beaming. He ain't say my name one time. Not once. It was like I wasn't even there, like I didn't exist. I felt so small. I could have just curled up and disappeared right there on that fancy carpet. I had to get some air. I slipped out the ballroom and went into the hallway, my chest all tight. And right then, when I was feeling lower than a snake's belly in a wagon rut, this older man, a sharp dressed brother, probably in his late 60s, walks right up to me. He had on a gray suit that looked like it was made just for him, and these little wire rimmed glasses. He said, "Excuse me, are you Keisha Vaughn?" I just nodded, couldn't even trust my voice. He gave me this little sad smile. He said, "My name is Julian Ellis. I was your grandmother's attorney and her friend. She asked me to give you this on this specific night." He held out a long white envelope. My name was written on the front in my grandma's curly handwriting. My hand was shaking when I took it. I just whispered, "Thank you." He nodded, said, "Your grandmother was a very wise woman. She saw everything." And then he just turned and walked away. I stood there in that quiet, fancy hallway, holding that envelope. I could hear the party still going on, the music, the laughter. It felt like it was a million miles away. I ripped it open right there. Inside was a single piece of paper. It was a letter from her. It said, "My dearest Keisha, if you are reading this, then they have done what I feared. They have forgotten you. But I never did. Do not let them erase you. Your legacy is not the one they choose for you, but the one you claim. Go home. Open the box. You have 72 hours." Attached to the letter was a legal document, a copy of the codicil to her last will and testament. I had to read it 3 times before it even made sense. The words started swimming in front of my eyes. You know how they do? But I focused. I traced the lines with my finger. It said that upon her death, her 51% controlling interest in Vaughn Legacy Group, which she had secretly kept in a trust, was to be transferred to me, Keisha Anise Vaughn. My whole world just tilted. 51%. That was that was everything. But then I saw the fine print, the clause at the bottom. The transfer had to be legally claimed by me in person at a formal meeting of the board of directors within 72 hours of the public announcement of a successor. That party, that was the announcement. The clock was ticking. I didn't even go back in the ballroom. I walked right out the front door of that hotel, gave the valet my ticket, and drove home to Decatur in a daze. The whole way, my grandma's words was just spinning in my head. Opened the box. I got to my little apartment. My roommates was out, thank God. I went straight to my closet, dug under them sweaters, and pulled out that cedar box. It felt heavy in my hands, heavier than I remembered. I sat on the edge of my bed and I opened it. Inside, on top of a pile of old papers, was a small black USB drive. Under that was a thick stack of documents, tied with a faded ribbon. I untied it. The top page was the original incorporation document for Vaughn Legacy Group from way back in 1978. And there it was, in black and white, signatures, Derek Vaughn, 49%, Rose Vaughn, 51%. She'd always been the majority owner. My daddy had been working for his own mama this whole time and ain't even have the power he thought he did. Then I picked up that USB drive. My hands was trembling so bad I could barely get it into my laptop. I put on my headphones and clicked the one audio file on the drive. It was a recording. The quality was a little scratchy, but I could hear the voices clear as day. It was my grandma and my daddy. The date on the file was from 3 years ago, right before Grandma Rose got real sick. My daddy's voice was all smooth and sweet, the way he gets when he wants something. He was saying, "Mama, it's time. You need to rest. Let me take the full burden of the company. Just sign the papers. It's for the best." And then I heard my grandma's voice, and it was as strong as I ever heard it. She said, "Derek, I may be old, but I ain't a fool. I built this company from red dirt and prayers. You think I don't see how you look at your own daughter? How you look at Keisha? You think I'm gonna let you throw her away like she's nothing? This company is her birthright just as much as it is Simone's. I will not sign. I will never sign." My daddy started getting mad then. His voice got ugly. He said, "She's an embarrassment, Mama. She can't even read a balance sheet straight. She will ruin everything you built." And Grandma Rose, she just said, real quiet, "No, son. You're the one who's going to do that." And then the recording ended. I just sat there in the dark with tears just rolling down my face. She knew. She knew everything. She saw what he was, what they all were. And she had been making a plan to protect me this whole time. But what happened next was just, I had a plan, but I had no idea the fight he was finna put up. The next 48 hours was a blur. I ain't even gonna lie. My chest got all tight. Felt like I couldn't breathe. I was having a full-blown panic attack. I got the will. I got the proof. But what was I supposed to do? Walk into the VLG tower and just say, "Hey, I'm the new boss"? They'd laugh me out the building. The 72-hour clock was ticking down, and I felt that old familiar feeling creeping in. That voice in my head they put there. The one that said, "You can't do this. You're not smart enough. You're the slow one." I almost gave up. I'm telling you, I was ready to just crawl in bed and let Simone have it all. But then I looked at that cedar box on my dresser, and I thought about my grandma's face when she gave it to me, and something inside me just hardened. Nah, not this time. Ain't nobody gonna face me out. I picked up my phone. My hands were still shaking a little, but I scrolled through my contacts. There was one person, one name, Grandma Rose always talked about with respect. Sister Maggie, Margaret DuPont. She was my grandma's best friend and her first business partner. before she retired. They came up together. I found her number in my grandma's old address book I kept. I prayed she ain't changed it. I dialed. An older woman's voice answered, sharp and clear. Hello? I said, is this Miss Margaret DuPont? She said, it is. Who's this? I took a deep breath. I said, my name is Keisha Vaughn. I'm Rose's granddaughter. There was a pause on the other end. Then her voice got real soft. She said, Keisha, baby, I haven't heard from you in years. How you doing? And I just broke down. I told her everything. The party, my parents, the box, the will, the recording, the 72-hour deadline. I just let it all pour out. She listened. She ain't say a word till I was done. When I finished, all she said was, hold tight, baby. Don't you move. I'm on my way. And then she hung up. An hour later, a black Lincoln Town car pulled up in front of my little apartment building in Decatur. Sister Maggie got out, and she looked like royalty. She was in her 70s, but stood straight as a board, wearing a purple suit and a matching hat. She walked right up to my door and gave me a hug that felt like it could fix broken bones. She came inside, sat on my lumpy couch like it was a throne, and said, all right, let me see what you got. I showed her everything. She read that will, her eyes getting sharper with every line. She listened to that audio on my laptop, her face getting harder and harder. When it was over, she just shook her head slowly. She said, I knew it. I always knew that boy didn't have his mother's heart. Then she looked at me. She said, Keisha, you know what you have to do, right? This ain't just about the money. This is about your grandma's legacy. This is about your own name. I nodded. I said, I know, but how? She smiled. A real smile this time. She said, you got the truth on your side, baby. And you got me. We just need the right weapon. She pulled out her phone and made a call. She said, Julian, it's Maggie. I'm with Rose's granddaughter. Yes, it's time. She was talking to Mr. Ellis, the lawyer from the party. The next day was all about strategy. We met Mr. Ellis at his office downtown. He was all business. He had the original will from his vault. He authenticated the documents from the box. He made copies of everything. He told me, Miss Vaughn, according to Article 4, Section 2 of the Vaughn Legacy Group Corporate Bylaws, as a majority shareholder, you have the right to call an emergency meeting of the board of directors with 24 hours notice. And they legally got to show up. No excuses. He said, we will serve them notice this afternoon for a meeting at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning in the main boardroom. Be ready. I spent that whole night not sleeping. I was going over everything in my head. I practiced what I was going to say. Sister Maggie stayed with me. She made me sweet tea and told me stories about my grandma, about how she used to face down these racist bankers and slick developers back in the day and never even flinched. She said, all that fire she had, it's in you too. You just gotta let it out. The next morning, I put on the best suit I had, a simple navy blue one I got from a thrift store. It wasn't designer, but it was clean. Sister Maggie drove me. We didn't talk much on the way. When we pulled up to the VLG Tower on Peachtree Street, that big glass building scraping the sky, my stomach was doing backflips. This was it. I was walking back into the place that saw me as a charity case, as an embarrassment. But this time, I wasn't coming in through the mail room. We walked into that lobby, and I held my head up high. We took the private elevator straight to the top floor to the boardroom. When the doors opened, they was all there, the whole board. And at the head of the big mahogany table, my daddy, and right next to him, Simone. My daddy looked annoyed. Simone just looked confused. My daddy stood up, giving that fake, charming smile. He said, Keisha and Margaret, what a surprise. What is the meaning of this? I didn't say nothing. I just walked to the empty chair at the opposite end of the table and sat down. Sister Maggie and Mr. Ellis sat on either side of me. Mr. Ellis cleared his throat and said, "Mr. Vaughn, this is a legally convened emergency board meeting called by the majority shareholder of this corporation." My daddy just laughed, a big booming laugh. He said, "Majority shareholder? Julian, have you lost your mind? I'm the majority shareholder." He was looking at me like I was a roach he was about to step on. He started talking to the board, all smooth. He said, "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for this disruption. My youngest daughter, Keisha, she gets confused sometimes. She's been under a lot of stress. I'm sure this is all just a big misunderstanding." Simone was sitting there looking at me with pity in her eyes. That look she'd been giving me my whole life. The "oh, poor Keisha" look. That's what did it. All the fear I was feeling, it just evaporated. And all that was left was this cold, hard calm. I just let him finish. I let him dig his own grave. And when he was done, I stood up. The room got real quiet. I looked at my daddy and I said, "I'm not confused." My voice didn't even shake. I looked around at every single person at that table. I said, "For 20 years, most of you in this room have known me as the slow one, the quiet one, the one who wasn't going nowhere. And you were half right. I am quiet, 'cause I was listening. I was watching." And then I looked right back at my daddy. I said, "And you use my disability as an excuse to count me out. You and Mama, you thought I wasn't smart enough to matter." Simone shifted in her seat. My daddy's face was getting tight. I just kept going. I said, "But Grandma Rose, she knew better. She knew who you really were, Daddy. And she made a plan to protect her legacy from you." Mr. Ellis stood up. He said, "I am now passing out copies of the legally certified final will and testament of Rose Vaughn, along with the codicil filed and sealed 2 years ago." An assistant passed a folder to every board member. I could hear the rustle of paper and then just dead silence. I saw heads snap up, eyes getting wide, people looking from the paper to me, then to my daddy. His face had gone pale. Simone looked like she'd seen a ghost. She whispered, "What is this? This can't be real." I said, "Oh, it's real. And that ain't all. Mr. Ellis, if you please." Mr. Ellis then passed out a second document. I said, "That is the original 1978 partnership agreement for this company. You'll notice my grandmother, Rose Vaughn, is listed as the 51% founding partner. She was always in control. A man on the board, Mr. Henderson, he looked at my dad. He said, 'Derek, is this true?' My daddy, he was sputtering. He was like, This is a fabrication. It's a lie. She's not well." He was pointing at me, his hand shaking. He said, "She's always been unstable." And that's when I knew it was time. I looked at Mr. Ellis. He nodded. I reached into my bag and pulled out my laptop. I opened it and connected it to the big screen at the end of the boardroom. I said, "You're right about one thing, Daddy. Grandma was old, but she wasn't a fool. And she left me one last thing." I hit play, and my daddy's voice filled that silent, expensive room. His own words, trying to bully his sick mother into signing away her company. His own voice, calling me an embarrassment who would ruin everything. When it was over, you could have heard a pin drop. Nobody was looking at me anymore. All eyes were on Derek Vaughn. His face was gray. He looked like a man who had just been shot. He just sank back into his chair. Simone was staring at him, her mouth open, tears welling up in her eyes. The final confrontation, the verdict. It wasn't loud. It was quiet. That was the scariest part. Mr. Henderson, the board member, he cleared his throat. He looked at me. He said, Mrs. Vaughn, Keisha, what do you want to do? And in that moment, I had all the power. I could have fired him right there, humiliated him, kicked him out of the company his own mother built. And part of me wanted to, man, I ain't gonna lie. The part of me that was that little girl struggling to read, the part that heard him call me an embarrassment. But then I thought about what Grandma Rose would have done. She was a builder, not a destroyer. I looked at the board. I said, my grandmother built this company on integrity, on family, on legacy. The current leadership has shown a lack of all three. Therefore, I am not calling for a termination. I'm calling for a vote of no confidence in the leadership of Derek Vaughn. It was a checkmate. If they voted for him, they were voting against the rightful owner of the company. If they voted against him, he was out. One by one, they raised their hands, all in favor of the motion. It was unanimous. My daddy was done, finished. He didn't even say nothing. He just stood up, real slow, like he was 100 years old, and walked out of the room. Simone, she just sat there for a minute, crying silently. Then she looked at me, and for the first time in my whole life, I didn't see pity in her eyes. I saw, I don't know, maybe respect. She got up and followed him out. The aftermath was messy. The family was a wreck. My mama called me, screaming and crying, asking me how I could do this to my father. Then a week later, she called back, real quiet, and just said, I'm sorry, Keisha. I'm sorry. Simone, she ain't talked to me for a month. Then she showed up at my apartment in Decatur one night. She just stood at the door and said, he lied to us all this time. He told us Grandma left everything to him. We believed him. I didn't know what to say, so I just said, I know. It is what it is. The board wanted me to take over as CEO. They was ready to hand me the keys right then and there, but I told them no. That was never the point. It wasn't about the title. It wasn't about the power. It was about the truth. It was about my grandma's name. So I took a new role. I created it myself. Strategic advisor to the board and protector of the founding legacy. It means I have final say on all major decisions. It means ain't nobody can ever mess with what my grandma built ever again. It means I get to make sure the company is a place where people are judged by their work, not by who they are or how their brain is wired. I still live in my little apartment. I still drive my Honda. I didn't take the big corner office. I took a small one down the hall from where I used to work. Sometimes I see my old coworkers and they look at me different now. They don't know the whole story, but they know something changed. My daddy, he retired, moved down to Florida with my mom. We don't talk much. Simone is still at the company. She's a vice president now. She had to earn it for real this time. We're working on it. It's awkward, but it's a start. They spent 20 years calling me the slow one, and maybe I am. I move slow. I think slow, but I see everything. And what I learned is it ain't about being the fastest. It's about being the one who lasts. And I'm still here. You feel me? I'm still here.
Thank you, Keisha, for sharing this story with us. Chile, what a story we just heard. I'm telling you, that right there is about so much more than some company. It's about a young woman who was made to feel invisible by the very people who should have been lifting her up. Imagine that. To be counted out by your own family right there in front of God and everybody. But she found her power in the love her grandma left behind, and, she claimed her rightful place, not with a lot of noise, but with quiet dignity. Now, look, there are some serious lessons in here for all of us. The first thing is what Grandma Rose did. She ain't just leave Keisha some nice memories. She left her proof. She had that will, the original company papers, and a codicil. Now, a codicil, let me break that down for y'all, is just a fancy legal name for an update to a will. See, that paperwork was her voice speaking truth from beyond the grave. The mistake folks stay making is thinking a spoken promise is the same as a written one. You have got to get things in writing. Second, Keisha didn't have to walk into that fire by herself. The minute she was ready, she reached out to her grandmother's people. Listen, don't you ever be too proud to call on the wise elders in your circle who know your heart. And here's the best part. When her daddy stood up in that boardroom and tried to tear her down, she ain't scream and she ain't cry. Honestly, she just let him finish talking his foolishness and then she pressed play. Ain't that the most powerful move? If I had to break this down for somebody going through something similar, it's this. You stay quiet, you stay focused, and you let your facts do all the fighting for you. A rule to remember is simple. Don't you never let nobody's small opinion of you become the truth of you. I ain't gonna lie, my heart is full seeing how Keisha chose to build, not to burn it all down. That ain't weakness, everyone. That is a strength that no amount of money can ever buy. If this story gave you something to think about, go ahead and subscribe and hit that thumbs up. It sure does help the channel reach more folks who might need to hear these stories. Let me know in the comments which city or state y'all watching from. I love seeing where our community is. And right now on the screen, you're going to see other videos from the channel. Click one and let's keep going.